A few weeks ago, the biggest cheating investigation in speedcubing history began off the back of an absolute bombshell that was dropped in the cubing community when the world record for FMC, or Fewest Moves Challenge, where you basically have 1 hour to solve a cube in the least amount of moves possible, was broken with an unreal 19.67 mean of 3. The first official mean of 3 we had ever seen under God's number 20 moves, which is the highest amount of moves it would ever take for a computer to optimally solve a cube. So the guy who is actually now labeling himself as having bested God's number, a Sri Lankan cuber by the name of Kalindu Sachinta Wijisundura, was quickly caught in an absolute gauntlet of allegations from the entire internet as well as the WDC, or World Cube Association Disciplinary Committee, upon learning that this guy had just done something that was nearly impossible even for someone who is one of the best in the world at the event. Because, you see, the problem is, Kalindu wasn't that. Kalindu is a cuber from Sri Lanka who's been competing since 2022, and from what I've heard, he's a highly respected figure in their community, holding all of the blindfolded records for his country and also just being an extremely looked up to figure in the community as a whole. And it is for this exact reason that absolutely no one expected what became of this drama. You see, just 3 months ago, Kalindu wasn't exactly known for being a top player in FMC. His best official mean was 33.3 moves, good enough for around top 800 in the world, so by no means was he a complete beginner at this point. But the chances of him breaking the world record mean, something that has very little to do with luck, could be confidently rounded down to 0. Now, the first sketchy situation he was ever involved with was at a competition he attended back in March, Marawaila Cubing Challenge 2024, where he recorded a 24 move mean, good enough for top 70 in the world, which did have some people scratching their heads over his Herculean improvement, but it was absolutely nothing compared to what he had in store for Sri Lankan Nationals 2024, wherein, by what all means is the magnum opus of Kalindu's achievements, he recorded a 19.67 mean, breaking the previous world record held by Wong Chong Wen at 20 moves. It was then that absolute chaos broke loose all over the internet. I mean, how could somebody that had just averaged 33 moves 3 months prior achieve this level of mastery that we had quite literally never seen before? For reference, this is basically like if I, someone who averages 9 to 10 seconds on 3x3, walked into a comp tomorrow and got the first ever sub 4 average. Something just wasn't adding up. Still, there were those who confidently defended him online. I mean, this record was absolutely huge for the Sri Lankan cubing community, and just for cubing as a whole, to see a mean under God's number was a huge breakthrough. But again, most people were simply refusing to believe this was real, and the first basis of accusation was that he was the only delegate at all 3 competitions in which he saw this insane improvement in such a short amount of time. And speaking of which, he had only just become a delegate a couple of months ago. So up to a few weeks ago, this was where the status of the record sat, at simply baseless allegations that could never really be confirmed. He was okay at the event, now he's breaking the world record, and he's running the competition all by himself. But the circus had only really just begun, because it was when Kalindu's actual solutions for this seemingly impossible mean graced the eyes, both in image and video form, of those who were at the highest level of FMC, that chaos struck. Yes, he decided to take it upon himself and explain his entire thought process to the world in the form of a 1-hour YouTube video. I will preface this by saying that I am by no means qualified to talk about this, but the premise of it is so simple that a dog could understand it. So what Kalindu did on all 3 of his solutions is he used what's called the domino reduction method. You don't need to really understand what that is, but all top solvers use it. And in simple terms, the beginnings of his solves were unusually long, to the point where if a top solver found the solution, they wouldn't even consider looking further into it, and his finishing steps were unusually short. In fact, Daniel Egdahl, one of the best FMCers in the world, ran 1 million simulations of this step, and all of Kalindu's solutions were, on average, shorter than the best mean of 3 he could find out of everything that was generated. Again, tying back into 3x3 terms, this would basically be like if someone did a pretty long cross solution, say 12 plus moves, and then just got 4 free pairs into a last layer skip on every solve. Technically not impossible, but very suspicious to say the least. And the real part of his solutions alone that wasn't adding up was the fact that he claimed to have averaged 22 moves at home at this point. So for him to even be using that many moves in the first step of his solve just isn't something that someone at his level would do. On top of that, the finishes to his solutions strikingly resembled what a computer would do in that situation. So at this point, Kalindu, especially being a delegate, was already heavily under fire, but behind the scenes, the WCA Disciplinary Committee was looking deep into his case. And I wanted to wait to make this video until they had come to a final verdict, and this past Sunday, June 16th, they did just that. Kalindu's main allegation of his official case began with the suspicion that he had memorized the scrambles for the FMC round that he would compete in, and then executed them in competition, showing the same amount of work that I did on my calculus final, which it wasn't a lot, but me and Kalindu do have a major difference, which is that he found the correct answer, which was the world record, and I didn't. Again, the problem is none of this was conclusive evidence that he had cheated. I could blame Martin Telesforo for getting lucky on his 4.41 world record single, but it's impossible to prove he cheated unless there was some actual concrete evidence that shows such. So we arrive at the final chapter of this investigation, where the WCA decided to look into an FMC solution software called Mallard, of course with the help of its creator Jonas Baus-Folan, to check if Kalindu had submitted the scrambles there before the competition, being the perfect place to find solutions to said scrambles and get a world record average fair and square. And like Donald Trump getting ready for an election, he was hit with yet another allegation, this time coming in the form of absolutely career-ending evidence against him. You see, not only did he leak the scrambles for the comp, but he also generated them not right before the competition, as a delegate's supposed to, not even a couple of weeks before, but 43 whole days before Sri Lanka Nationals 2024, which would give him a good amount of time, specifically more than 1 hour, actually more than 1,000 hours, with the help of outside resources to break a world record. The WDC finished the investigation by asking Kalindu 3 questions via email, being, did you cheat, did you leak the scrambles, and if he tampered with the scrambles. Of course, he denied all of the accusations and justified the generation of the scrambles 43 days prior by saying, and I quote, his device's date and time were incorrectly set 40 days off. Because obviously they could see the files and tell that they weren't generated when they were supposed to be. And I just find it really funny that that's what he came up with. I mean, he planned all of the generations 40 days after, and he was just like, if they ask me why I generated them that early, I'll just say that it was my Lenovo ThinkPad 2011's date and time that was set off exactly 40 days in the past, because of 500 years of daylight savings buildup. Out here bending time like Erik getting another clock world record in 2025. But in the end, Kalindu was of course found guilty for literally everything he was accused of, for of course not only blatantly cheating, but also being a delegate and cheating, which is a huge breach of trust, and then refusal to confess. It is because of this that he is going to be given an 8-year ban from the WCA, which is basically a lifetime in cubing jail. So this was something that we have quite literally never seen before in cubing history. Again, I wanted to wait until there was actually a final verdict. Didn't want to jump to any insane conclusions about this guy or what he did. I just want to add to all of this that you might look at somebody like Kalindu and say that, oh, he's just a terrible person who does terrible things. And, it was a pretty terrible thing to do, but at the same time, everybody has their reasoning for everything they do. Don't ask me what that was for this. But what I'm saying is, don't go around harassing him on the internet and stuff like that. I already feel pretty bad making this video myself. But yeah, just don't do that, please. But yeah, this whole situation has been brewing for quite a long time. I'll put all the links to all the documentation and stuff that I used for this video down below. You should definitely go read that stuff because it does a lot better of a job explaining the whole situation than I ever could in however long this video ends up being. Also, you thought that I would forget, but I never forget, ladies and gentlemen. You are still slower than a 6-year-old. You need to remember that. The 6-year-old did not cheat. This is basically just reality for you at this point. Free Kalindu. Besides that, that's about it. See ya.